Showing me. There we are. Okay. All right. Good morning. Let me bring my exceptional guest on. Hopefully, I did not lose you. All right. So here we go. What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to the Well Just Brand TV show. Let me just get my cameras right. Let's see. Here we go. Here we go. See what happens. There we go. What happens when you. Lord, look at this. Cait, mess today. This is what happens when you don't do your show for a couple of months and you just, I wasn't going to have a practice show. I'm like, we're going to dive right in. Come on. Really? All right. Hi. Good morning. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Well Just Brand TV show. Oh my gosh, I'm perfectly imperfect, and I am loving every moment of it this morning. Well, this is what happens when it's live, but that's okay. Welcome into the show, my friend Cait Donovan. I am so excited to have you here. Woo!
I can't
Okay.
believe I'm on a show called The Well Dressed Brand.
Listen, honey, you brought it today. I had to get my glasses on, little menswear expired because I am with the Cait Donovan, and so listen, my mind is still blown from the metallic sneakers that you were wearing when we first met. I was like, okay, I'm feeling the pink. Oh wait, and then we have polka dots. Oh wait, and the metallic sneak. Okay, we're friends. Officially. So I have been stalking you ever since we met at the National Speaking Association, the New York City chapter. I am so glad to welcome you into the show. Thank you so much for saying yes. And you are bringing your mission of ending burnout culture or ending burnout to us as well as international crowds. You have this exceptional medical background. You're having these really difficult conversations, but also very educational. You are an author. You are an amazing podcast host. I am so, so excited to have you on the show today. Welcome in.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. And the Mutual Appreciation Society up in here is real.
Well, I have to tell you something. One of the things that I've been thinking about since we met is
Yeah.
that you are not a fake Cait.
No.
It's like honestly, what you see is what you get, and you are out. You're that way through all of your platforms. You have such an exceptional personal brand, and so you embody all the things that are a well dressed brand. You are authentically yourself. You're unapologetically yourself. And one of the things that, I said when I talk about a lot of times using your wardrobe as a business strategy, it really drew me in and wanted to get to know you more. And so you are the epitome of all of those things. And you just happen to be talking about something that is so relevant, so important. And I really think that it has a huge impact on your brand as a business and also your personal brand. So I'm excited to get into it with you today.
Me too. And just for everybody out there, please know that when I'm walking my dog around my neighborhood, I don't look cute.
Oh,
It's
I don't
that
believe that.
yeah. Well, if you met some of my neighbors, maybe you could ask them. I
Listen,
know I have such
same.
I am who I am to my absolute core because of burnout.
Yeah.
I tried the game where I was somebody else,
Mm,
and it nearly killed me. So I can't do that anymore.
yeah. Wow. And I hope that you guys heard that. We are so past this point of fake it till you make it. I had taken a job a couple months back because I know that I was approaching burnout, and I was just kind of like, let me just take a pause on my business. Let me go work in the real world and kind of see where I am and what I'm really feeling. And the leadership team would often say, fake it till you make it, fake it till you make it. And oh my gosh, Cait, when I tell you how the I had like a visceral reaction, inside, because I'm like, we have moved so past that in the world that is not even, it's such a toxic thought, in my opinion, because we just can't afford to be anything less than ourselves. We can't afford to be anything less than we were called to be. So please, take us back a little bit and tell us a little bit about your burnout journey, if you will.
I fell into a job that I really loved unexpectedly. So I always thought I was going to be a doctor. That was my plan my whole entire life. I excelled at school. I got the scholarship. I did all the things. And then I got to school and I was like, I hate everything about this life. What am I going to do? I happened to have a professor at the time who was the world's foremost scholar of Taoism. And
Mhm.
I said, Livia, I don't know what to do here. And she said, "We'll do Chinese medicine." And I said,
Hmm.
What is that?" Just like, "What?" It sent me down this completely different path where I realized that I could doctor people.
Mm.
I could serve people in that way without having an MD,
Yeah.
and in a system that included the entirety of people's lived experience. Not just what's showing up on my doorstep on that particular day,
Yeah.
which really now serves me well in the burnout role. But at the time, I was like, "This is perfect," and when I finished school, acupuncture is a master's degree, which most people don't realize. It's a
Oh,
four-year master's degree, so it's a lot of schooling.
wow.
And you have to see up to 400 patients before you're even allowed to sit for boards and graduate from school. So you have a decent amount of experience, but you're not taught how to build a business. Like, that's not their job, right? They're just teaching you how to do an acupuncture. And while I was in school, I met someone from a foreign place. My husband is Polish, grew up in Poland. I decided to move there to be with him once I graduated. So
Wow.
I have just graduated from a four-year master's degree. I grew up in a low-income family, so this was all done on student loans. It was a private school, so none of it is subsidized, and it's way more expensive than it needs to be.
Wow.
And I'm gonna go work in a country whose monetary value doesn't even, like, shake a fist at the dollar.
Yeah.
So I get there and I'm like, I have got to grind. And I grew up in a grind culture. I grew up in a low income city that was drug ridden and full of
Yeah.
gangs, and that I thought that was normal. So I put my nose down and went for it. And I was extremely successful.
Wow.
And I don't say that to not be humble, but the truth of the
Mm-mm.
matter was I got to the point where I was 28. I was on Polish national TV on a regular basis. I was in magazines. I was being asked to speak around the country, and my body was breaking down.
Yeah.
What I didn't realize this whole time, I'm just gonna go straight to it.
Get to it.
What I didn't realize this whole time was that I had built my life on a belief that I was unworthy of other people's attention
Mm.
and affection unless
Yep.
I was serving them more than they were giving anything to me.
Mm. Wow. That part. I know so many people, including myself, that can really, really, really relate to that. And you just gave all of us permission to lean into that and be an example that we can move through it. Please continue. Wow.
And not only can you move through it, but you have to.
Yeah.
Because otherwise when burning out is the beginning of the health journey. You don't deal with burnout and chronic stress. You end up with strokes and diabetes and heart attacks.
Mm. Wow.
You don't have a choice at some point. You have to get it together. And getting it together to me required a lot of work of understanding. that I'm valuable because I woke up this morning and that
Yes.
that's enough. I don't, and honestly, I don't believe it every day.
Yes. 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 And thank you for sharing that. I was just talking to someone who is like a motivational influencer, and we were talking. He was, he was saying that, like, yeah, like people think that just because my platform is all about, motivation and pouring into them, but like some days I just don't have it. And it's the same, right? Like not every day do I show up as a well-dressed brand. Like we're human. And I think that, to your point, we need to focus more on the human experience instead of trying to be Superman or Superwoman.
And I think what that human experience does on a grander scale is increases our ability to extend belonging to people.
Mm,
Because if we can remember that we are human, then
yeah.
we can also remember that other people are human. So
Yes.
our expectation levels change for everybody.
Mm,
Right? So being human, allowing myself to be human also allows me to allow you to be human. And let me tell you, my lack of recognizing my own humanity really did lead me down to this very judgmental, morally superior martyrdom place
wow.
where I was super righteous about the things that I was doing, and
Mm,
it was ugly. Like, I was so judgmental, like, "You're not doing it the way I would do it, so you must be doing it wrong."
wow. Yeah.
And I have to admit that part too.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's a lot to unpack, isn't it?
I
But
know.
no, but
Sorry.
no, and I mean in a really good way, because often, even, how do I want to say this? There have been times in my career when I'm talking about just unpacking, like some people just really don't want to deal with their emotions, right?
Yeah.
And so now, they're facing this. There's this push I'm seeing, especially with entrepreneurs, of this weight of this unsatisfied.
Mm.
I'm so unsatisfied, right? I'm so discouraged, and myself myself, I'm included in that too. And so you're speaking to me, but I also know that somebody else is listening, and they're just not at a place where they would be willing, to unpack. And we just have to start this journey towards wholeness, because it impacts our families, it impacts our business, it impacts everything. So I'm so grateful to you for sharing that. And before we were talking about you coming on the show, I'd shared with you that I had just had this, like, I did this assessment test, and it came back that I was cognitively stressed. And I was like, I don't feel stressed. What are you talking about? But I also know that because of trauma and a lot of the things that you've mentioned in your background, we have some similarities, that I thought that if trauma didn't represent itself in a big T kind of fashion, right? Where, like where all hell wasn't breaking loose, then I can't be in a trauma moment at all, because that's the only trauma that I was aware of. And then when I was looking at this report, I think it was a Kobe report, and I had never taken that assessment before until recently, and it said that I was in transition, and that I was cognitively stressed. And I was like, what? Okay. And they were like, here's a list of things that would make you cognitively stressed, right? And so it was like moving, and I'm like, check. 3 moves in 3 years, right? Philadelphia, Texas, now upstate New York. Boom, 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 all while the pandemic is going on. Gotcha. And then it was like, okay. And then also a death in your family. Well, during the pandemic, we had about 7 deaths in our family. About a few months ago, my stepfather passed away. My mom passed away 6 years ago. So I go, okay, check. All of this makes sense, right? And so I'm like, okay. And then it was like, and changing jobs and da 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 da. And so that's just an entrepreneur. You're wearing so many different hats. And so when I thought of you, I was like, okay, I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to call my therapist, and we're going to work through some of these things. And then I was like, and I've got to talk to Cait Donovan, because if I'm experiencing this, I know that somebody else is. And so that's why I'm thanking you for unpacking that and being so honest and open and transparent about it, because I know that right now, Cait, you are really giving somebody permission to look at burnout in a very, very different way. So thank you for that.
Of course.
My next
Before
question, go
before
ahead.
we
Yeah, yeah.
before we
Let's get
get
it.
there,
Yes, please.
I think that's something important to point out is that you said in the beginning, "But I don't feel stressed."
Mm-hmm.
And what we need to understand as a collective, that we are grossly misunderstanding at all times, in my opinion, is that stress isn't an emotion.
Mm,
Stress is a state.
educate us.
Right. So stress is something that happens. Emotions happen on a neurological and hormone level, right? An endocrine level. And so does stress. Okay, fine. That makes them puts them in a similar place. But stress is not a feeling.
Mm,
Stress is a state that your body is in. It doesn't necessarily feel like
yeah.
much, unless
Yes.
you are so high on the scale that you're, like, physically shaking or, when something happens and, like, you can't calm down. That to me is like, if I have a confrontation with somebody that I actually feel unsafe within, I'll
Yeah.
shake for a little while after.
Mm-hmm.
That is a physical manifestation of being stressed, but stress
Mm,
is not an emotion. So no kidding you didn't feel stressed because that's not really a thing. We've learned to substitute the word stress for emotions that we're feeling that because, like you said earlier, somebody might not be ready to face it, and they probably don't have the skills to face it. We are not taught how to recognize emotion. So
yeah.
maybe you're frustrated, maybe you're resentful, maybe you're angry, maybe you're sad, maybe you're
Yes.
self-righteous, maybe you're but those are the feelings. Stress is not a
Yes.
feeling.
Yeah. And I know that you're 100% right because as I started to unpack these things, a lot of those things were just at the bottom of that, you know?
Exactly.
And so I've had to spend the last couple of weeks really slowly, of course, I'm always on my wholeness journey. That's my word for this year. Like I've been working towards that. And a lot of that is related to the book that I'm writing now, but regarding your brand. But I can so relate to what you're saying because, Cait, truthfully, that was what it is. I was like, man, I feel apathetic. I feel dissatisfied. I
Mhm.
feel, um, I'm discouraged. I'm frustrated. And I'm like, I am so ready to like leap into this next level. But for the first time in my life, I didn't feel capable to do so. And
Right.
I'm so grateful that today I feel, I'm like, I'm back in the driver's seat. I'm feeling so much better. But when I tell you that I don't even know how long that was going on,
Yeah.
I don't even know how long it was going on. And so I know I am living proof of what you're saying. I love that. So in your book, you talk about, in your book, the bounce back ability. So I love this book cover, by the way. It makes me so
Thank you.
happy. You were talking about what happens to your brain. Can we just get into that a little bit? Because I love talking about, the brain and just the foods we eat and the things that we do and what like really is happening and I love that you said this in your book too, that once you kind of get a hold of this and think about what's happening in your gut and in your head, your health journey becomes less about the size that you are and more about making sure that those things are in a place of wholeness. So can we just talk about that a little bit?
Well, and it's less about the size, it's less about any sort of morality. It's less about you not being good enough to be healthy or there's no judgment in it. So
Mm,
the brain during burnout does a few interesting things that are really similar to ADHD
mm,
and really similar to past trauma. So we
wow.
don't really know the proper blend of all of these things. Neuroscience is still learning every day. So what we know is the caveat is this is what we know right now. And in 6 months, this might not be true. This
Wow.
might be a little bit different, right? So because we keep everything keeps um, evolving as we continue to learn. But one of the things that we see in chronic stress patients when we are doing MRIs is that the part of the brain that sits just behind the forehead, it's called the prefrontal cortex, and it gets smaller. Like
Mm,
literally, you lose cells.
wow.
Just let that sit for a minute. So I had a client once say to me, Cait, I just feel stupid. Did burnout make me stupid? And I said,
Mm.
"Well, yeah, a little bit." Yeah, yes.
Yeah, it actually did.
And it did a little bit, and it will come back. It can come back. Our brains are plastic. We can grow them. We can create states of safety that allow our brains to reconnect in ways. But knowing that that front part of our brain is responsible for a whole host of functions that together we call executive functioning. I
Yeah.
refer to this as adulting. A lot of this stuff is the core of the things that you learned in kindergarten. It's impulse control, it's waiting in line, it's following directions, it's task initiation, it's decision making, it's
Yeah.
connecting with other people. It's all of these like really basic skills are off. And then you have
Wow.
people that don't understand burnout in the world saying, "Well, you should just control your reaction to a stimulus." And you're like, I don't have that filter right now, ma'am.
Right. Facts. Yeah.
I don't have it." And so what we need to understand is that you don't have it, and what we really need most in this space is for you to give yourself grace because you didn't make this happen. If you
Yeah.
didn't respond to the stressors coming into your life long term, there is likely a reason for it. That reason might be genetic or epigenetic. That reason might be nature. That reason might be nurture, how you grew up, previous trauma,
Mhm.
etc. That reason could be for a million different things, but it's not your fault. There's nothing that you did on purpose to ignore your stress until it got to this point. You
Yeah.
were taught to behave this way, and
Yeah.
it probably worked for you for a very long time before it stopped working.
Yeah.
So it becomes very confusing. Perfectionism worked for me for a very long time.
Mhm.
Got me a full scholarship to college, got
Yeah.
me to be a competitive gymnast, perfectionism got me all the praise from my teachers and got perfectionism worked.
Yeah.
So no kidding, I kept doing it until it stopped working, until it tipped over the edge and created more problems than it solved. So the prefrontal cortex, that's one portion of what happens in the brain. Another thing is the space that's responsible for our long-term memory shrinks. So this is when my client said, "I feel like I'm getting stupid." I'm like, "You just don't have access to some of your memories that you
Yeah.
will have access to again, but you don't have access right now." And then the part of our brain that's responsible for scanning our environments to see whether or not we're safe gets bigger. So
Oh,
everything
wow.
shrinks except for this part. So then we are hyper vigilant, on high alert, and
Wow.
often misinterpreting situations as unsafe because we are constantly looking for ways that we are unsafe. So when people walk around and they say, "Well, trust your instincts," I'm like,
Please don't. Please don't
like some
trust your instinct
maybe,
on this.
maybe
Right.
sometimes, but what's supposed
Wow.
to happen with that part of your brain that grows, the amygdala, there's 2 of them, 1 on each side. I call them Amy G Dala. We break that down. So Amy, when Amy grows and when Amy responds, what's supposed to happen if you are in fact in a safe environment is that front part of your brain that's responsible for adulting talks to that back part of your brain and says, "Nah, Amy, we got this. Don't worry about it. We're good here. Everything's fine."
Mm.
But Amy's on fire and that front part of your brain is shut down.
Wow.
So of course you feel like everything is out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course you do. And all I keep thinking about is I have a couple my I think my last guest was Dr. Marie Haven, and we talked about,
Oh, I love her.
isn't she incredible? I mean, come on.
Yes.
And we were talking about menopause, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that you're talking about is happening to your brain as well when you're perimenopausal or when you're menopausal. And no one's, and of course she's like you, just leading the charge on a lot of these conversations. And all I keep thinking about, Cait, is what about the single mom who is like stretched to capacity? What about all of the Gen X and older millennials, but probably mainly Gen X, I'm thinking, that were not diagnosed, especially female, not diagnosed with
ADHD.
ADHD,
Mhm.
right? Right here. Um, but it's so obvious that you have it. right? So you're like perimenopausal, you have ADHD, you're running, your life, business choices stuff 100% alone. There's no one to delegate it to. You don't have all the capacity and the education that you're saying. Like, they must feel that they are 100% on fire.
Mhm.
Amy, Kathy, Kevin, everybody's on fire. Like, I don't even like, how do you, like, I just am like, I would be sitting alone in a room and just like, like, what do you even do? I have a good portion of those things going on, you know, but I'm grateful. I'm so grateful to the Lord that I know how to ask for help. I have spiritual practices, and my faith keeps me, pushes me through a lot of those things. But I've had to, really take care of my gut, acknowledge that, like, hey, this brain fog. Oh, and by the way, two autoimmune disorders, right? So
Yeah.
two autoimmune disorders, ADHD, perimenopausal. Yeah, I'm cognitively stressed for many reasons, right?
Yeah.
And so I just love what you're saying about this because it just breaks my heart. Like, if you guys are watching this and you have not already decided to go rewatch this and grab a notepad, please do. I put Cait's website in the show notes, so you'll have that before I transition into my next question. And I I love your book, The Bounce Back Ability, because it's such an easy read. And I found myself like not being able to put it down. Like, I just want to drink in. And I think this show is going to be exactly the same way. So I'm excited about the people who are going to share it, rewatch it, because you are definitely saving lives today. I wanted to talk to you and ask you about resentment. What role does resentment play in all of this? And get into, please, your resentment journal and mini course, like helping us to combat some of that stuff. But like, why resentment? What role does it play?
Resentment is probably the thing that saved me from burnout.
Mm,
Saved me and helped my recovery the most. Because what I found was I was feeling resentful in every single place that I was overstepping my own boundaries for the perceived and assumed benefit of other people. A
oh,
lot of times for things that people were not even asking me for.
yes.
And I often set myself up, we're going back to this sort of judgmental moral superiority martyrdom state. I was setting myself up and doing all these things for other people, not allowing people to do things for them, and then being mad at them about it.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't letting anybody in, I wasn't asking for anything, and I was still mad that I wasn't getting it because I would have done it for them.
Wow.
Like, they should have forced their way in? Like, what do you mean, Cait? Like, pull back. This is not the way any of this works.
Yeah.
So, in addition, when I was overstepping those internal boundaries and creating resentment, the thing that was happening underneath that was self-neglect.
Mm,
A learned self-neglect. Because I learned in my household growing up, not through I don't blame my parents, I love my parents, we're very close, all of that.
yeah.
And there were some circumstances that led me to need to focus on other people's emotional states because I felt like if I could influence them, that I could control the emotional temperature of my home,
Yeah.
right? So I was so tuned in to everybody else that you can't be tuned into yourself. So I couldn't
Yes.
have paid attention to myself if I wanted to because I learned not to. I learned to pay attention to other people instead.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know when I was hungry, when I was tired, when I was thirsty, when I had to pee, I didn't know most of the time
Yeah.
because I just wasn't even in my own body. So
Wow.
resentment taught me A, where to put boundaries,
Yeah.
B, where I was overstepping, and C, how to create space to actually start the process of what's known as interoception, of paying enough attention to my internal world that I'm aware of what I now call my core foundational needs. Learning the core foundational needs, hunger, thirst, rest, etc., learning to pay attention to those is what allowed me to then create enough trust between me and myself for my brain to feel safe, like, "Oh, she's got us, don't worry.
Yeah.
She's got our back. She's gonna
Yeah.
respond. We're gonna send her a signal and she's gonna respond."
Yes.
When you get a signal and you respond over and over and over, what
Hmm.
happens is that you start to trust yourself. When you trust
Yes.
yourself, you feel safe. When you feel safe, guess what happens to your brain? It can reconnect, it can regrow, it can repopulate itself the way that it needs to. And that amygdala, that amygdala that's on fire, she can calm down.
I love that.
So the resentment journal is the mini course is a small my smallest product, my smallest offering that allows people to explore where resentment is popping up in their own lives and goes through a question sieve that says, "Well, what do we need to do with this thing? Do we
Yeah.
need to drop it? Do we need to delegate it? Do we need to have a conversation? Do we need to create an internal boundary so that we stop overstepping and
Mm.
then face the guilt?" Because that's the opposite side of it often, right? I just have to face the
Mm.
guilt that I'm not gonna show up the way I used to show up. Other people most of the time don't even care, but
Yeah.
you care,
Yeah. 100%.
so that people can create enough space to be able to pay enough attention to themselves to be able to recover from burnout.
I think that that's brilliant. So outside of like, okay, we're going to get the journal, we're going to do the mini course, we're going to just hop into this journey. I hope you guys are going to get on this journey of healing and wholeness and just, combating burnout. Give me like two more things that we can implement today that would help us to end burnout.
Number 1, yoga nidra. Free. Insight timer, Calm app, YouTube, anywhere you want. You can find yoga nidra sessions for free. Yoga nidra is not yoga. It's called sleeping
Like,
yoga.
what is this?
It's you laying down. If you've ever been to a yoga class and at the end you're laying down in what they call corpse pose in Shavasana, and they say, relax your forehead, relax your eyes, relax your jaw. And then all of a sudden you're like half melted and you don't know where you end and the floor begins. That's yoga nidra. That
Okay.
is another way that we introduce safety into our bodies that allows our brain to regrow. There are actual MRI studies that show that during yoga nidra, the front part of our brain that is diminished in burnout lights up. So the more activity it
Mm,
has, the more likely it is to grow. So this is actually an absolutely free technique that can save you.
yeah, I love that. Second.
Outside of that, go be in nature, please. There
Yeah.
are so many things about being close to plants and nature. Even if all you have is a local small park, go sit in it. Like, I don't some of us live in concrete jungles. I get that. And also, there's a small park, a corner park somewhere, go sit in it. Go find it. Because there is actually an energetic exchange between us and plants. Trees
Mhm.
especially have an infrared sort of connection with our mitochondria. Like,
Yes.
we need to be in nature. This is not just like, go wander around because it's nice for you. No, no,
Yeah.
no. This actually can change your physiology and
Yeah.
again is mostly free,
Yeah. Yes. I
which I
love
love.
that. I have a guest coming up on the show that's her
Great.
whole foundation specifically around with African Americans because she has this great thing and she's just like, this is your park, like your tax dollars are paying for it, and then you want to turn around and say that's not for me, like her whole thing. But she's, to your point, she's like working with pregnant mothers and like all these people, like, no, talking about the importance of just getting outside
Yeah.
and how it really changes you. And so, and I'm guilty. I Before we moved to upstate New York, I would be the first one like, listen, I don't do outside. Like my husband would tell you, I'm like, I'm allergic to grass and trees. I have like all the excuses. I'm like, baby, I do not do outside. And so I was like, that's some white people stuff, like my husband's Irish. I'm like, that's for you and your people. Y'all go and do all the white people things. I do not feel this way anymore. I am reformed. We have gone on so many hikes and we live across from a trail. Like, I'm outside all the time, I promise. But that was my thinking. I'm like, I'm not. Mm-mm. And no, no, sir, we're not doing this. So Anyway, that probably was an overshare, Cait.
No,
But
I don't
this
think
is
so.
what
I
we
think
do.
that that's a common I think that that's a common reaction that so many people feel. Like, that's not for me, but the fact of the matter is you deserve your physiology to be improved on by nature too.
Yes, 100%. I can talk to you all day. I love you. Thank you so much for educating us so much with this. I mean, I really do think that this is going to change some lives, save some lives. And I hope that you guys are really getting that. As you're talking about, you want to write your book, you want to get more speaking engagement. If you're experiencing burnout, this is impacting that. Personal branding is all about, the alignment of your mission, your vision, your image. Are you being authentically yourself? How can you be if you're burned out? You can't. And so that's why I wanted to have the Cait Donovan on today to talk to us about this, because we are just a few months out from, the new year. We're already getting ready and making plans and planting seeds to be on that next big stage and do our next biggest thing. And I just want you to do it from a place of healing. I just want you guys to do it from a place of wholeness. And so that's why this show was so important for me today. And you had to meet Cait because, hello, for all the reasons. Cait, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
Please
so
make
much for
sure
having me.
you guys love this, share this, comment. I mean, I'm sure that you're already commenting, but make sure that you share this. If you have a friend that's kind of like, I'm stuck right now, I'm feeling unsatisfied, maybe they're burnt out. And so that's why I wanted to share that, because I had no idea that I was. Cait wasn't sure that she was. And so now we're at a space where we can, get up and like not grind, but move into, not so much the grind culture, but, we can get up and just move through the world in a way that we were meant to do so. All right. And I
Yes.
love what you were saying about the human experience. Okay. All right, you guys, have a great rest of your day. We will see you next week where we are talking about authenticity. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about that next week with my guest, Inga. And so make sure that if you guys have not downloaded my Toy Sweeney app on your Roku, you can do it right on your TV. You can do it right on your phone. But we're live everywhere. So you can watch it on Twitter. You can watch this on LinkedIn. You can watch it on Facebook, everywhere except Instagram. Sorry. You can live. They don't want me to be great. All right. All right. Love you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Okay. You don't have to hang up, but if you have a heart out, you can. I'm gonna finish.